You can be an asshole and build a profitable company. And you have to choose how you're going to live your life and how you're going to contribute to the world. And I just chose that path. I chose the path of being a servant. I've seen both sides of the ball. I've worked in both types of organizations. And I'll tell you, the one that is the healthiest emotionally, the best cultures are the servant-led companies.
One of three things people want when they communicate. They want to be hugged, they want to be heard, or they want to be helped. And if you can ask in your mind when they're communicating, which one does this person want? 99% of the time, you're going to have a better, more effective conversation.
There's an old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. If you don't know what your values are, what you stand for, how you want to live your life, then how do you know where you're going?
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. Welcome back to the show. Today we're sitting down with Howard Behar, the man who helped explode Starbucks from just 28 stores to over 15,000 stores across 5 continents, all by leading with a people-first mindset and servant leadership approach, which he discusses in depth in his book, It's Not About the Coffee, Lessons on Leadership from a Life at Starbucks. If you've ever wondered what it takes to create a workplace culture that helps men and all humans thrive in work and in life, then you're in the right place. This conversation will change the way you see leadership forever. Howard Behar, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really an honor to have you speaking to us about yourself and leadership. Thank you for being here.
Oh, well, John, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited. And yeah, quick announcements, and then we'll get in our one breath practice before we get into the meat and potatoes with Howard Behar. So Spartan Race, October 19th, down in the Dallas area with me and Will. If you'd like to join our team, check out the mentalkingmindfulness.com website. And that's about it. Check that out for everything that we're doing. So one breath practice for Howard. Just so you know, we just do a one breath grounding practice to ground all three of us and to ground our audience. So that said, if you would be so kind as to join us in that, go ahead and get comfortable, whatever that looks like and feels like for you. And that's for us here, the three of us, and for the audience. And I can hear Will letting all that air out. Go ahead and let that air out. Go ahead and exhale. Feeling empty at the bottom. And then a nice, long, slow, deep breath in. Hold at the top and let that go. Let that go and just feel your body in the here and now. Bring yourself to here, bring yourself to now. And all right, now let's get into this conversation with Howard. Howard, again, so great to have you here. Very excited. Will, I'll turn it over to you for our first question.
Yeah. All right, Howard, we would love a little kind of a brief history about Starbucks, when you started, what was the size and condition of Starbucks, and what was it like when you left?
Well, I started when there were 28 stores, and it was definitely an entrepreneurial-driven business. It was focused on the product it sold. And I came in and I said, the product's important, but it isn't what's really important. It's the people that are important. And people make great coffee. Well, some people may think that coffee makes great people. There's some mornings I get up and I think, but
Got a cup right here.
I came in preaching the gospel of servant leadership and the idea that we weren't in the coffee business serving people, but we were in the people business serving coffee. And I stirred up a hornet's nest.
Yeah,
good for you.
And it wasn't that these were bad people. It's just that all typically entrepreneurial early stage companies are totally focused on the product or service they're providing. And they think that's the business they're in. But the minute one entrepreneur hires one individual, now he or she is no longer in that product or service business. They're in the people business. And so that's what I brought to bear, and I was relentless about it. I believe I was in my mid 40s by the time I got there. So I was pretty firmed up in what I thought was important in life. And I have believed since my late 20s that there's no reason any of us are put on this earth except to serve others. And if you do that well, then you're going to get what you need out of your life. You may not end up rich, but you're going to have a fulfilling life. And so that's what I tried to bring to Starbucks. And I just kept driving it home, even when I got tremendous pushback, even from the CEO at the time, from Howard Schultz.
Yeah.
I used to drive him nuts. I'd come to the meeting and I'd say, Howard, what business are we in? right? And he'd get mad at me because he wanted to be in the coffee business. I said, no, we're in the people business. But eventually we all wind up and we got in sync with each other, and that's what we drove at Starbucks. And the truth of the matter is, whenever we've got in trouble, and Starbucks has gotten in trouble a few times, we've taken our eye off of that ball. And the only way we recovered is by getting our eyes right back on that ball of that we were in the people business serving coffee. And
Wow.
so
Love that.
Well, was there like, what was that? You said you discovered this servant leadership philosophy, in your 20s. Like, what led you to that philosophy? Was it a bunch of mistakes? Was it, just a lot of failure in your life? Like, what was the story there?
Well, I'd had some failure and I was working in a company that had a CEO that wanted me to be something different than I was. And that caused tremendous internal strife within me to the point that I got depressed over it and almost quit my job. And eventually I ended up staying, but not that, I stayed for another year. But I realized that Howard didn't know who Howard was.
Ooh,
Mm.
okay. Yeah.
And because I couldn't have an intelligent conversation with that CEO about who I was and what I stood
Mm,
for and why I stood for those things. It wasn't like he was asking me to change the color of my pants. He was asking me to change who I was as a human being. And so that began my journey of trying to discover who I was as a human being. And somebody introduced me to Robert Greenleaf's work on servant leadership. And I had been an unconscious servant leader. I was a kind, generous person that I expected performance of people that reported to me, but I never thought that my responsibility was to build the organization on the backs of people, but with people. But I had no words to describe it. I was just unconscious about it. And somebody gave me this little pamphlet called The Leader is Servant and by Robert Greenleaf. And I read that and it made sense to me. And so I started to research and to try to discover. And over time, I became a conscious competent on servant leadership. In other words, I understood it, I could practice it, and I could teach it. And so that's what drove me. And so it was that conflict with that CEO that really got me to go there. And other people helping me and giving me resources that I had never discovered on my own before.
yeah, and I got to thank you for that. Because I mean, even other organizations I've seen have kind of pivoted off this servant leadership style. Like, I used to be an ambassador at Lululemon, and it's all about, people first kind of thing, and it's just like, and so it just spills out all over the place. So thank you for bringing that to the world, Howard, because we need
Funny
more
you
of that.
say Lululemon because a person that ran Lululemon for a while had come from Starbucks, Christine Day.
Exactly. There you go.
Wow.
There you go. Right. Yeah. I'm not surprised. I didn't know that, but I know that, I was part of that organization for a
Yeah,
couple years, and it was all people driven, all servant
yeah,
leadership driven.
yeah.
And here we are talking
Well,
about it. So
all
John, yeah.
the companies that I've ever read about that have done exceptionally well. I mean, certainly there's some that do well that do not practice servant leadership, but the ones who have done exceptionally well have servant leaders at the helm. And I've always found that term servant leader somewhat redundant. It's not exactly redundant because not all servants are leaders, but I feel that all true leaders, some people may call themselves leaders, but they're really not. The ones who are true leaders are servants. They understand that their people work for them, not the other way around. Or sorry, that they work for their people, not
Yeah,
the other
Right.
way around,
Yeah.
exactly.
right?
Yeah, and
So
yeah. I mean, look, you can be an asshole and build a profitable company. And you have to choose how you're going to live your life and how you're going to contribute to the world. And and I just chose that path. I chose the path of being a servant, and I've seen both sides of the ball. I've worked in both types of organizations, and I'll tell you the one that is the healthiest emotionally, the best cultures are the servant-led companies.
Yeah.
mhm, for sure.
Agreed.
And I would say, with my military background, I've seen that as well. I've
Yeah,
had examples of good leaders and bad leaders,
yeah,
and the good leaders have always been, "Hey, what can I do for you?"
yeah,
What
Yes.
and that
as the
is the
leader.
way it is.
Yep,
Yeah.
Even in the
absolutely.
Right.
military, everybody thinks the military is tell them what to do,
Yeah.
and
Shut
kill
the
them if
fuck
they don't
up.
do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But the great military leaders have always been the servant leaders. They're the ones that
absolutely.
have unified their organizations around serving
Mm,
people, and even though they've had it's a tough job, and you may have to shoot somebody, and it's
mm.
a hard conflict to put your mind around, right?
Yeah,
But it is what it is, and the great leaders in the military are the ones that say, here's the hill, here's what we're trying to accomplish, here's our greater purpose. Tell me what you need.
exactly, exactly. So so tied to that, that servant leadership piece, when you reached out originally on LinkedIn, you mentioned that you've been a long time practitioner of mindfulness. How do you see those 2 tying together, mindfulness and servant leadership?
Well, they're kind of one and the same because because the mindfulness is about awareness of self, right? In a sense, and so is servant leadership, and uh, the mindfulness, learning to manage yourself and manage your emotions and dealing with those things are the same things that happens in a servant leadership led environment. And, I'm not here to say that I'm an expert on mindfulness. My daughter-in-law is. She teaches it to children in grade schools and high school, and she set up an organization to do that in the Seattle area, and it's been incredibly successful. It's taught kids how to manage their emotions in stressful times and uh, how to manage themselves, and that really is it. And so I put the 2 together. I don't find I think the same tenets that look, the most difficult person you'll ever have to lead in your life is you,
Yeah. No
Amen.
kidding.
right?
Yeah.
Servant leadership is a pathway for doing that,
Yeah.
and so
Right.
is mindfulness.
Mm.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed, agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah, I just wish that we had had something like your daughter's program when I was in grade school, 'cause, I know it took me decades, and I certainly am no expert or, pro at emotional regulation. I still lose my
Yeah.
temper,
Yeah,
You
but
man, I
know,
lose
but
my shit too, John. You can say
yeah.
shit, John. It's okay. I lose my shit too. Especially
Indeed.
when I'm hanging with my family. Oh my
Oh my
God.
gosh,
They had to
same.
push some buttons, huh?
yeah, those buttons get pushed, don't they?
Oh, I know. They certainly do.
Sorry, Will, I cut you off there, brother. What were you gonna
No,
say?
no, no. I was just, and I'm so glad that, we're seeing more of this mindful approach to business, this mindful approach to education, this more, more like, and mindfulness really, just really just being aware of how you're showing up, how you're feeling, how you're thinking, how, maybe this habit works, maybe this one doesn't, and then having the willingness to change those habits, which I think is so incredibly important. And, we've had, I mean, obviously we're men talking mindfulness, so we've had, several different, leadership approaches, and it all comes through just that self awareness. And it's like when you access your self awareness, you access your heart. When you access your heart, you access your humanity, and you can actually begin to see, feel, and be with the humanity of other people.
I mean, how many people know who they are?
Mm,
Not many.
I've
Abe.
mentored every year. I mentored 8 MBA students at the University of Washington, right? And the first question as we got together as a group, I went around the room. I said, "Would each of you tell me your top 3 core values and how those values inform your decisions and the actions you take in your life?" How many people do you think could answer that question?
0.
Hardly any. Every once in a while, I'd get usually maybe 1 out of the 8 that could get there, and the rest couldn't even kinda understand, and, there's an old saying, "If you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there." If you don't know what your values are, right, what you stand for, how you wanna live your life, then how do you know where you're going? And you're just gonna at the end of your life, you'll be look back and say, "What the hell happened? I don't want that to be my life." And so you gotta look at your life and say, "What do I stand for? What are my 8 to 10 core values? What are the things that really drive me that come hell or high water, I'm gonna live up to these things." Doesn't mean they have to be written in stone. They can be written in pencil and you can change things anytime you want. But you need to know who you are, and you need to know what your greater purpose is. And those things go with mindfulness because it allows you to be you. And that is one of the most critical things. I call it wearing one hat. wearing the hat that you put on in the morning that reflects who you are as a person, not the roles we play, but the hat that we wear that informs our actions and our decisions. It's tied to our values. It's tied to our personal mission statement. It's tied to our greater purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, love it. And that was a really big core principle in the book, is wearing your one hat. And another thing that we talk about consistently on the show is, like, being your authentic self. And sometimes it takes time to develop and understand and dig into, what does it really mean, for me to be authentic. You talk about core values. You talk about, like, what you really are aspiring to, and what you want to leave, and the kind of legacy you want to leave in the world. And, without that one hat, and that guiding force, then and I think that, we're so easily persuaded, and shifted and moved, in so many different ways, if we don't know what our one hat is.
I mean, there's people that are jerks, and that's their hat. They're absolute assholes. And I just want to know that so I can make a choice to be around them or not.
Agreed.
Right.
Right.
Agreed.
Yes.
And that's critical because
Yeah.
people that are like that, they do damage. Right?
Yeah,
People
very
that
much
Toxic.
aren't
so.
kind or loving or caring or authentic or vulnerable, they do damage. You can
Mhm.
see it going on in our country right now. I mean, like we were talking before we got on air. What the fuck is going on? What happened to kindness and caring? What happened to acknowledging our mistakes and owning them? What happened to being able to deal with that? This all this stuff is crazy. It's look, it's this whole issue with I'm kind of getting off here a little bit, but
No,
That's
no
all
but
right.
worries.
D, but
Go.
D, but DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden those are bad words. Why are they
Mm,
bad words?
mm,
What's wrong with diversity? Anybody
Nothing.
that's watching this program that has kids and has more than one child has a diverse family because
yeah,
each kid is different and
true.
Great example.
each kid has different needs.
Mm,
So what is equity about? Equity is about helping each kid to their own needs, not to your needs, but to each child's needs, not to the first child's need, not to the second, but each to their individual needs. And then what is inclusion about? Is making them part of the family, having them understand that we love them, we respect them, we're kind to them, and they're part of this organization we call family. That's what DEI is about. And sometimes one kid needs more help than the other. One kid struggles with dyslexia. Are you going to ignore it, or are you going to get a teacher to help him?
right.
Right?
No,
Very
definitely
Right?
true.
get that teacher.
Yeah. So one child born in the ghetto never has had a role model for somebody that's made something, built a business or anything. Well, sometimes you got to help that person get a role model that you're not helping the person that father has run $1 billion business.
Yeah.
And sometimes, everybody says, well, you can't, it's to the person. Yes, it's true. But there are people that live in communities where the majority of the people in the community are a certain skin color or a certain gender or whatever it is. And sometimes that group hasn't gotten the advantages that other groups have. And if you can't acknowledge that, there's something wrong with you. The Army and the Air Force and the military, all the military acknowledges that,
Yeah.
and they help each person to their own.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I fully support that. And I mean, breaking it down to the simplest level, like you mentioned, the family and the children. A child's most important needs, aside from clearly food and water and shelter, is that they feel a sense of significance and they feel a sense of belonging. And that's not just children. That's people. People all want to have this sense of significance and a sense of belonging to family, a sense of belonging to an organization, to a team. And then coming back to what the fuck is wrong with this country, Howard, we mentioned this before. I think it all boils down to money and ratings. So news media and social media, what sells on those channels is conflict, is, hey, saying drama. It's saying the right are so far right, this is what's happening. And the left is so far left, this is what's happening. And then blaming one another and saying that other side, whichever side you're on, that other side, the other is responsible for where the country is. And it's not that. It's taking some responsibility and saying, you know what, let's work together to improve what we have. So I could go down the rabbit hole all day
No.
long.
But
There's
we can choose. That's what mindfulness is about. We can
yes.
choose.
Yes.
Okay, we
Yes.
are in charge of our own destinies. What is it that you choose to do? Do you choose to be kind and caring and loving and generous, or do you choose to be greedy, mean, and abusive?
Right.
And don't tell me what just happens, because when you choose the I'm just going to say the wrong side of the track, you're making a conscious choice. You're not a
Mm-hmm.
victim when you choose to be mean,
No.
you know?
Yeah. Right.
And so you can be kind and caring and still get the things you need.
Yeah, well, I think this what we're having this conversation here leads us to what I feel is, I feel the best and most important part of your book. And here's the book here. I'll show everybody. It's not about the coffee. I mean, probably this is. I got to say, Howard. We obviously talk and have a lot of books and authors on about leadership, and this was one of the best books I've ever read on leadership. So anyone out there, read. It's not about the coffee. And there's a section in the book that, again, it really comes back to what we're talking about here, and really about people first. And people first and servant leadership style in business is a chapter that you have about compassionate emptiness. And we're gonna break down what this is, Howard, with your help. But leaders they often get in trouble because they're always trying to solve every problem immediately and often by themselves. Instead of rushing to solve problems, you offer compassionate emptiness and say in the book, but most of the time, people are not asking for help; they're asking to be heard. Yeah, right. Why is this method of leadership so important and so much more effective?
You know how I learned this lesson? So
Please.
so my wife is an oncology social worker.
Okay.
Every day she'd
Oof.
come home with her day's work. Now she's dealing with people that are dying of cancer, children dying of
Mm.
cancer and their families. And she'd come
Mm,
home, somehow she deals with it. She'd come home and
yeah.
start talking about her day, and I'd immediately go into solution mode,
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
right?
Been there.
yeah.
Okay. And she'd get mad at me, and I never could understand. I'm just trying to help, honey. I'm a man. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to have solutions. I'm supposed to tell you what to do, right?
Right,
And yeah, yeah,
exactly.
and I couldn't get it, and it was blowing up with me and my children. I have 2 children now who are in their 50s, older than you guys probably, but and I was doing exactly the same thing, and I was reading this book, and in the book was this quote. I can't remember the book now, and the quote was a 2-word quote, "Compassionate emptiness," right? And I said, "Compassionate emptiness," and then I went on to explain what compassionate emptiness was, and I said, "Okay, I'm going there." And then when my wife started coming home and talking about her day, I didn't go. I said, "I'm not going." I had that wanting that. I had that desire. I'm not telling you I didn't, but I said, "I'm not going to go there." And I said, "So tell me what you're feeling about that, right?" You know, and if I thought she needed something, is there anything I can do to help you, or do you just need an ear today? And I started to do with that my kids. It changed my relationships completely with my kids and my wife. And I'll give you here's a story of my youth. As first time I was ever vice president of a company, a young woman comes to my office, and I had a table, and she sat across the table from me, and she starts crying. I mean, tears coming down her eyes, and I just looked at her, and I got up, and I took the box of Kleenex, and I went around the table, and I put the box of Kleenex down, and I put my arm around her shoulder. She about ripped my head off. You know why? Because she wasn't sad, she was mad, and that was the way she was showing her anger. The tears was her anger, and I backed up. I pulled back really quick, and I said, "What did I do?" And she said, I don't need you to put your arm around me and try to comfort me. I need you to listen to me."
Mm, there you go.
And
All right.
that's what most people need, is just an ear. They don't need your solutions. Great
Yeah.
leaders don't have the solutions. They have the right questions.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Allow people to find the solutions that most of the time they already have.
If your kid comes home, he's dealing with a problem, and don't make your immediate thing, well, did you do this? Did you try this? Ask, how you feeling about it? What do you think you should do? What can I do to help you get through this? Is
Yeah.
there anything, or would you just want to be left alone? It's okay.
Saw, I'm
Men
forgetting
are
who.
men are guilty, guilty, guilty.
Oh,
We
for
are
sure.
we are
For
guilty,
sure.
guilty, guilty. It's part of our DNA. We're hunters. We're out there. We're going to kill the deer, bring it home for family to eat. We have
Yep.
there's these high expectations. We got to
Provide and
get over that
protect.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not the only ones in this world that can bring home the bacon. My wife brought home plenty of bacon
Mm.
and
As
put
does
my
mine.
kids through college.
I've heard this. I forget who it was. There's this fantastic video on YouTube. It's a TED talk about how we as men and women, or it's not even men and women. It's like the masculine and feminine energies. And he said there's really three things. One of three things people want when they communicate. They want to be hugged, they want to be heard, or they want to be helped. And if you can ask in your mind when they're communicating, which one does this person want? 99% of the time, you're going to have a better, more effective
And
conversation than
then
if
you
you
can
just jump in.
ask them,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
would you like right now? What could I help? What would serve you the best?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And no,
there's nothing wrong with asking them. It's
yeah.
like it's like good sex. If you don't ask what pleases the other person, how the hell would you know? And if you're not comfortable talking about it, how are you ever going to know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And
It's the same exact thing. Ask. There's
yeah.
nothing wrong with not knowing.
Yeah, that's very true. And a lot of leaders feel like they must know all of the problems or all the answers to every problem because they then, we kind of get often in this show about like, what, about men like just looking or seeming or feeling weak. Whereas like, that when they're weak, it's like that's when vulnerability comes online. And that's when are at our most magnificent part of our humanity is when we're being vulnerable and don't know the answer.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to be the machismo guy that has all the solutions and is got to protect everything all the time.
And I think if you are the person who has all the solutions, all the answers, then you're sitting in the wrong room, right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
need
you're
to
not a
Yeah.
be.
leader. You're
Yeah,
not a
exactly.
leader.
Yeah,
You're an
Yeah.
autocrat.
yeah,
Yeah.
You're a dictator.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I thought like let's put a little more context around this compassionate emptiness. And you quote Joel Goldstein here, and he says, "Compassion and emptiness are not two different things. Compassion is not a stance, but a simple responsiveness to circumstances from a place of selflessness." Right? The emptier you are of the self, right? That's usually often the ego. The more responsive we are. So, so why is this such an effective means of leadership within an organization?
Well, because it allows each person to be themselves. It allows each person to be vulnerable and be their authentic selves. It's like another quote that I have: the person who sweeps the floor should choose the broom. Okay.
Yeah, right,
I
right.
don't have to, I can be empty of types of brooms, right? To choose from. I can just say, go choose a broom and I'll buy it for you, you know? So it's understanding that your role in life is not to be, tell everybody what to do. Your value in life is not that. Your value in life is the love you give to others, the kindness and generosity that you give and show to others. That's your value. And so when you're empty of solutions, right? That's what you're giving. You're giving respect that the other person is capable. And compassion means understanding and listening, right? And caring.
Well, let's talk more, more about that caring piece. You break down the 9 tools to experience and practice compassion and emptiness so that you can listen with less of an agenda and more caring. So the first tool you break down is doing it in person. Why is that so important?
Because there's nothing like touch. It's
Yeah.
we're struggling right now. The whole battle of people not wanting to go back to the office.
Hmm.
It makes a difference. Now, I don't believe that people have to be in the office every day to be productive. It depends on the work they do, but when there needs to be conversations, there's nothing like face to face. You can feel energy that I can't get on the tube here, right? There's something you can see the sweat, or you can see the person, whatever it happens to be. And so it just makes a difference. And the there's more great decisions made in the hallways, right? Why do men go out and play golf? They're the
Exactly.
business leaders,
They solve all
right?
the problems.
What the hell? You could be home. We could do it. We could one of those golf games on the internet. We could do that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We
Right,
don't have to
right.
be walking on the grass and pulling our cart
Yeah.
and hitting the ball, but why do we do that? Because it's much better. There's more meaning to it. And and so that's why in person is really important. And it does when you're in person, it's hard to get away with the garbage.
Yeah, you
Very
can't
true.
hide. You can't
You
hide
can't
as much.
hide. No.
Right. I mean, that's one thing that John and I have been doing. We've been at this show for 5 years. In the last 2 years, we have a summit, like where we get together for, this is virtual, obviously. John lives in Colorado. I'm in New York City, but we have a summit where we get together, John and I and our business advisor, David, and, we throw down for like 3 or 4 days. At Airbnb, because it's like this is a big hallway for us in which we really can move in a direction that we want to, but also have the conversations that need to be had that just an hour virtual meeting just does not cover even near as
What's more
much.
valuable, watching your son or daughter's soccer game on on a tube, or going to the soccer game?
Going to the
Going to
soccer
the
game.
soccer game.
Why
Oh
is
man,
that?
yeah,
It means more to the other person.
Yes, that's it. It's not about you, it's about what it does for the other person. And, performance counts. When you make a commitment to be at that soccer game, show up
yeah, right.
Show up and be present.
and be
Like,
present. Yeah.
yeah, I've
Yeah, stay
shown
off your
up.
phone.
Yeah. So look, oh my gosh, exactly. So I've shown up to the soccer games for my 8-year-old, and I am trying to do business while at the soccer game, which is total BS. I shouldn't
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
see her look up from the soccer field, and she's like, does this with the thumbs,
Yeah.
indicating, "Get
Oh,
off your phone, Dad."
Yeah.
So,
Watch the
my
game. Watch me.
yeah,
Watch the
watch the
game.
game, watch me, because again,
Watch
I
me.
exactly. Again, the kid, the child, all of us, we want to feel a sense of significance and belonging,
and we
and
want to
it
be
me
seen.
me
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the significance piece. If
right,
if
right.
I'm paying attention to my phone, then my child feels insignificant. So that's the next tool in that toolbox, the 9 tools, is listen for the meaning below the surface. Yeah, can you expound on that?
Yes, because there's always a conversation that goes on that isn't being said.
Yes,
Mhm.
on
yes.
on both sides, the listener and the speaker. And you have to tune in to what's not being said, not what is being said. And that requires that these little antennae that we can't see, but that we have as human beings, we have to tune into them. I used to say to people, our social workers, look, our baristas, you're social workers. You got 10 seconds to determine where that person is in front of you. Do they just want a hot cup of coffee, hot and no conversation? Did they just get a traffic ticket that's going to cost them $200 and they're mad? Or did their son or daughter just get a full ride to Harvard and they can hardly wait to tell somebody? You have to tune in. And that means you have to put yourself aside. And because that person isn't saying anything, but when a barista says, how are you doing today? You can tell if somebody's mad or something's gone on or they're happy. You seem like you're happy today. Something good must happen. Or how are you doing today? Right? Tuning in. And that's what those antennae are for, is tuning for the conversation that's not being said.
Well, I always get asked by the baristas at Starbucks, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I've always
So let
kinda
me
felt
ask you
I
a
was like,
question. Both of you have a
yeah,
significant other? Are you married, or?
Not right now.
I'm married.
Okay, so
He's
you've
married. I'm
had
not. Yeah.
significant others in your life.
Of
Have you
course I
ever,
have.
Will, have you ever lived with anybody?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Okay. So when you come home and you walk through the front door and you meet your significant other, your spouse, do you need to really ask them how they're doing?
You could just feel it.
No, you
You know
do.
Whatever
it,
it is.
don't
Yeah.
you? You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
feel the energy in the place.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Nothing needs to be said, and you know something's happened or what's going on.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so below the
Agreed. I mean,
But you
surface.
got to tune in. You
yeah,
got
you
to
got
Right.
to.
tune in.
Well, you got to
Mindfulness.
tune out from
The
the
other stuff. Yeah.
ego. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? From
Yeah.
like your agenda, from whatever your selfish needs are at the time, and really like again emptiness, right? So just coming clean, just being in the space, being present, and that's when we really begin to like. And it's a skill also, Howard. Like you're obviously very skilled at this in being able to write this book, but a lot of people, a lot of men as well, like we're always so again rushing to solve solutions that and to kind of put forth whatever our ego is trying to get us to do or say that we don't have the skills to slow down, to relax, to be more mindful, to be more present. And again, it's a skill like anything else that that's why meditation is so important. That's why getting control of your breath is so important. That's why it's so important to like just detach for some time and get away from your work so you can plug in a little bit more intently when you come back. But when you do that and you really begin to access more of like, instead of the mind is obviously very important, but it's a tool, right? But really makes a big difference is the heart. And that's another thing that you talk about here. Let silence fill your heart. Most people struggle and often speak up when feeling an uncomfortable silence, right? But you are recommending like let silence fill your heart. So like, how do we get into that frequency?
Well, that is just that. It's quieting your mind. That's where, that's what you guys teach is mindfulness, is quieting that mind for a moment. Walking in the front door and not yelling, honey, I'm home. What the fuck's for dinner? What the hell's for dinner? Or walking in
Yeah.
silent, walking up. God, it's good to see you. You know,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
how was your day? I had a tough day, if you want to know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that hug, that immediate caring, that, paying attention, it just makes a difference. I don't care what kind of day you've had. Your boss just chewed your ass out for something that you didn't do, and you're mad and you come home. If that's how you walk through the front door, if you can't put that away for a minute,
Yeah.
you're going to have a problem at home.
Yeah. Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah. And you, even like, and you keep going with this. It's like, what about like ask, right? Like yeah, what is this? Why are good questions so important? Obviously in the home life, but even in the workplace, like why are asking good questions and gathering others' opinions?
Because that's how you learn and that's how you grow and that's how you know where the other person is at.
Yeah. Very
you
true.
know,
Being
Exactly.
and
being
at the
curious.
end of the day, I can use my antenna, but I need to hear where that other person is at because if I ask them how you feeling or anything going on that you want to share or whatever it is, it makes them feel like they're cared about,
Yes. Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Agreed.
for
And
sure.
and that's what it's about in leadership. When somebody comes to work in the morning, they come into one of our stores and a store manager's there, you don't immediately say, "Hey, we got to really get going fast today." You say, how you doing this morning? Everything going okay? You know, and then listen.
Have you ever watched Ted Lasso?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I love that show, and he is a perfect example
Yeah.
of asking, and you will hear. He's always
Yeah.
curious, always
Yeah. He's
asking.
always curious.
Yeah, and there's a great scene. Dart. I'm just going to tell my audience if you've never watched Ted Lasso, go check it out. But there's this fantastic scene where he's throwing darts. It's a dart competition, and it's all about curiosity. So just look that up on YouTube. Curiosity and barbecue sauce darts. Fantastic scene. But I had a friend. I don't know where she got it, but there's a saying where she said, "Be interested, not interesting." And then I was like, "Oh, man, that's so perfect." Asking, being curious, seeing how your people are doing. So and with that, we talk about psychological safety, right? You always wanna make it safe to speak up. So that's the next thing. So we've talked about what have we talked about so far? Doing it in person, the meaning below the surface, let silence fill your heart, ask and you will hear. So we've got 4. Number 5 is making it safe. Can you talk more about that?
Well, making it safe means that anybody can say anything at any time without you being offended, and they know it. That I had open forums that I brought to Starbucks. Open forums were like town hall meetings, right? But there's some leaders that when they think of a town hall meeting, they want all the questions beforehand. They don't want any surprise questions. I always wanted surprise questions. I wanted people to be able to ask or say anything they wanted to in the meeting, period. I don't care what it was. They wanted to know how much money I made. They want to know what kind of car I drove, whether or not this is really my hair or is it a hairpiece. you know, uh, and,
looks like skin to me, Howard. I'm
yeah,
just kidding.
skin. Yeah, it's, I wanted people to feel free, and there was never any blame, and I would never hold anybody, I would never challenge anybody to what they asked. That every question was fair, every comment was fair, and some leaders can't deal with that. So here's was probably the best example of this. So we were having an open forum at Starbucks, and this was in the early days, and we had these bar stools up in the front, and we had about 1,000 people all surrounding this big room that we had, and we were, they all had their coffee, and we would have about a 10 minutes of presentation, then we'd open it up to the floor. And so the guy, his name was Daryl Collins. You know how long ago this was? 30 years ago, and I can still remember to this day. His name was Daryl Collins. He was a young African American guy. And sitting on these 5 bar stools were 5 white guys. There was 1 white woman, sorry. 4 white guys and 1 white woman. And Daryl got up and he said, when am I going to see a face like mine sitting in one of those chairs and those stools?
Wow.
Took guts
Oh,
to
yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
This is 30 years ago too.
the room went dead. I mean, you could hear a pin drop. You really could hear a pin drop. Everybody thought, oh shit, right? And God bless Howard Schultz. He gets up and he looks at Daryl and he says to Daryl, that's one of the best questions I've ever had at an open forum. I don't know the answer to that, but would you help me figure that out? That began the journey of diversity with inside the organization, because you know we were not very diverse. We were just a bunch of white guys, and in the senior positions, and yet 75% of our store managers were female. We were operating in African American communities, but we hardly had anybody that was African American until we did a joint venture with Magic Johnson to help us go into diverse communities. And Magic had a lot of influence and he helped us, and that began that journey. So it's why it's important, because look, we live in a diverse country. It's just the fact of life. And not everybody has been treated kindly in these 400 years. That's a fact of fucking life, like it or not. And
Right.
don't say that's not true, because it is true,
Yeah.
right?
If you're saying it's not true, you're probably a white man.
Yeah, you're probably a
Yeah.
white.
Yeah.
So get comfortable with that. You don't have to take all the blame for what happened beforehand. Don't look at it that way. Ask a different question. What can I do to make this better?
Mm.
Right.
Right? And so
Exactly.
here's Daryl asking that question. So what did we do? We went out and we hired some consulting help to figure it out. And it totally changed the company. And it created a healthy culture, a diverse culture that everybody was respected. And we didn't say we had to have 50 black people or 200 women. We didn't say that. We just said we need to look more like the country in which we're in, the communities in which we're working. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and also the making it safe, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
would
Of
not have been able
course.
to ask that
Oh,
question
yeah.
if
We
you
made
guys
it
didn't make it
safe.
safe.
We made it safe. And he was honored people. And I've remembered that story to this day. What message do you think that sends in the organization? It's okay to be critical of things that are not right. It's okay to talk about things that need improvement. It's okay to give any idea that you want and without judgment. And you know where Frappuccino came from?
No idea.
Yeah.
Frappuccino was a business that was created by a woman named Dina Campion. She was a district manager in Southern California. And I won't go into the whole story, but it's in the book. She had this idea because at a competitor store, she saw something like this. And she pushed and pushed and pushed until we finally agreed to test a product like that. And she did because it was safe for her to do it. What happened to Frappuccino? It became 20% of our business and a $4 billion business, all because Dina pushed.
Right. Yeah. And Dina
Thankful.
felt safe to
And
push,
she felt safe
to
to
ask
do
the
it.
question. Yeah. That's
Well, then,
huge.
the next piece, and this is what, man, I've seen people make the environment safe, but then they screw this part up all the time, is once the question is asked or a recommendation is made, it just kind of falls on deaf ears or falls into the ether and goes nowhere. Once you hear a question, you hear a comment, you have to be responsive. So we talked about making it safe, but now what do you do with that? You've got to
Well,
be responsive.
I'm not pleading for anarchy here. Okay, I'm not.
Yeah, sure.
Just because somebody says something or asks a question, I honor the question. I value the input and value the question, and I want to learn more. We needed to learn more about what Daryl was talking about, why he felt that way. Were there other people in the organization that felt that way? Amazingly enough, there are a lot of other people that felt exactly the same way. So no, it was about making it safe for him to do that and then responding to it. But that didn't mean that everything that everybody brought up, we just went out and immediately did. Hell, I had a wall in my office that was about 30 feet long. On that wall was divided into 3 sections. There are white 3x5 cards, pink 3x5 cards, orange 3x5 cards. And then there are subject headings like operations, technology, product development, human resources. At any time, anybody could come in my office and take a 3x5 card, an orange 3x5 card, write something on it, an idea, a question, something, and pin it to the wall. Right? Now, about every 2 or 3 weeks, I'd get my team together. We'd look at all those orange cards and look for new things or anything that was new. And if we said, "Hey, there's some merit to this," we would go to that person and say, "Tell us more about what you're thinking." And if we thought, "Gee, let's take this a step further," we'd take that orange card, put it on a pink card, and put it in the pink. Things that we're taking to the next step. And then let's say that we took it to the next step and we say, this is a great idea. Frappuccino is fantastic. Let's really get out there and let's get behind this thing. We put it on a white card. That became focus. Now, there might be 200 or 300 orange cards. There might be 50 pink cards, and there might be 10 white cards. But we always responded. We used to have this thing called mission review at Starbucks. It went in every paycheck. And there was one question: is there anything we have or not done that either goes against our mission statement or lives up to our mission statement that we should do more of? And they could send those back. And if they put their name on it and a way to get a hold of them, we had to respond in 72 hours once we got it.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
And it really made a difference. If people, you know, that adage of people don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care. And the way you show caring is by being responsive and acknowledge their value and their input. Whether you agree with it or not, it's not the issue. You can say to a person, "I hear you and I want to hear more," but at the end of the conversation, you may say, "John, I hear you. Either, and we'll put it down on the orange cards, or we just don't have time for that right now. But if you want to bring it back up later, fine." Or, "John, I just disagree with that. And here's why." Nothing wrong with that.
But
Right.
they still feel seen and heard by your
They're
saying that.
safe,
You're being
because you
responsive.
don't penalize them for bringing it up.
Exactly. And you also, and this leads, this open dialogue you're talking about leads to, feedback, which is so important in an organization. So it's like, talk about like providing, good, honest feedback to, and receiving feedback.
So Starbucks has a union today in about 600 stores, right? Why did that happen? Because leadership wasn't listening. So it happened during COVID. Well, what was going on in COVID? Companies were all over the place. And a place like Starbucks where you're face to face, 1 foot from somebody, they constantly were jerking the chain. Let's do this. Let's put up plastic. Let's not do this. Let's close stores. Let's get rid of chairs. Let's bring chairs back. Let's get rid of condiment stands. Uh, let's keep all the stores open. No, let's close the stores down. We were jerking our baristas' chains without asking them what they thought. We never opened the question that what should have been the answer to the answer to COVID to our people. Okay, we got a problem. Here's what we know. Here's what we don't know. Tell us what you think. What should we do?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And there might have been things you agreed with, might have things you disagreed with. You could say, here's why we disagree with this, but we'll review it again. And here's why we think this is the right way to go that you told us. And then we respond back. Here's what most of you said to us. So we're going to go down that path. Nothing. You don't have to have the answers. See, leadership at that time said they had to have the answers. They should have had the questions.
I
Right.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So they got what you always get what you deserve.
True. Yeah. And like,
Or you get what you ask for.
yeah.
Yeah, you get what you ask for.
And we have another one here. We got two more, right? I mean, and you have commit the time to give alignment, which requires a little more face time. So what do you mean by alignment as far as like, and committing to that alignment?
Well, alignment means that together you know where you're going.
Yes.
Alignment has to do with greater purpose,
Hmm.
right? With understanding why we're all here.
Right.
We were all here. Our alignment was this. We wanted to be one of the most well-known and respected organizations in the world. And we wrote that when we were tiny. And we laughed about it in the world. That was too big for us, but we put it down anyway. Known for nurturing and inspiring the human spirit. Known for nurturing and inspiring the human spirit. That aligned us towards how we treated each other, how we treated those human beings we call customers, how we served each other, and it created and being well known and respected, right? And so that gets alignment. Everybody knows what that means, right? It was difficult to get fired at Starbucks for missing your numbers. You could 3 years for missing your numbers in a start, that happens. As long as we were sure you were giving it your all, you know. But if you messed with the people, if you didn't nurture and inspire the human spirit, we would help you. We would try to coach you, but that was a way to get uninvited to stay at Starbucks. Now, when we asked you to leave, we did it with love in our hearts. You got to love people going out the door as much as you loved them coming in the door. And so
Agreed.
that's what alignment really means. And that's alignment in your family. Why are you married? I had my wall out here. You can't see it, but I have on our my wife and I did what's called a statement of purpose for our marriage,
Oh, I
Mm.
love that.
and it has about 8 or 10 things on it. Why we're married, and
Mm.
we revised it a couple of times over time as we've been married for 48 years. But
Mm.
why are we married? What's our purpose?
I'm sure that is something many, many people do not think about. Many couples don't.
No, and what happens is all of a sudden they get mad at each other, they fall out of love because they don't remember why they fell into love, and they're not reinforcing the things that made them love each other at the beginning, and you have to have conversations about it all the time. It's because things change. My wife wanted to go back to school to get her PhD in social work. Well, at that time, it was actually to get her master's and then her PhD. Her father got away with murder. He didn't even get her undergraduate degree. He had to pay for all three. But so she, so we had to figure out a way together that we were going to make that work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we
Right.
did. We did it together. My job wasn't
Nice.
to tell her no. My job was to tell her, let's figure out how to do this because that's
Right.
what you want. And she did the same for me. When I was at Starbucks, I was traveling 70% of the time. That's not easy, to do in a marriage, and particularly have kids at home. But we found a way because we worked together on it.
Yeah. And
But
also
we
comes
talked
back
about it.
to, well, yeah,
Yeah.
your last principle is your get to flow. right?
Yeah.
Communicate about the right things, right?
Yeah.
And,
Right.
so that's, I mean, it sounds like this dynamic between you and your wife and her getting her degree and you like being a businessman and, and getting out there and traveling a bunch, like it requires a lot of communication and getting
Yeah.
to the
So
flow of a communication. Yeah. What do you mean?
So here's another practice that we did early on in our marriage. And, I'm a business guy, strategic planning, so important. She was a social worker. She wasn't thinking about out there. Her people that she was treating were thinking about, can I survive for a week with
Mhm.
this cancer?
Mm.
The
Wow. Yeah.
family's dealing going on. So, but I kept pushing her, say, honey, let's have a planning session. Let's get in sync with each other. So we decided how we were going to do it, and we first we worked on all the different headings, the subjects: spirituality, material well-being, health and wellness, uh, uh, children, family, personal growth, education and development, vacations, uh, environment, all the different religion, all the different headings that were part of our lives. And different people have different headings. And then we went away for a weekend. We took some great wine and we got a 2-room place. And we took the big sheets of paper, with the sticky on the back, and when we wrote headings on this on these big pieces of paper for each of the headings, and then each of us took those and put them up in our own rooms. And we would write. Our job was to write 3 to 5 goals under each of those headings. What things that we wanted: marriage, spirituality, whatever the goals for you. You didn't have to think about what I wanted, just what you wanted. What are the goals that you had, right? So we did that, and then we came back and we presented to each other. Okay,
I
and we
love
could
this.
Me
only
too.
ask clarifying questions, right? No
Yeah.
judgmental questions. We had a nuclear family, so it was our second marriage, and each of us had a child. And we were struggling to bring those kids together because they weren't, they didn't grow up together. They grew up a little bit together, and each of them would try to separate us, right? And so we had to figure out a way to deal with that. Well, it caused some conflict in our marriage. And finally we said, what can we do about this? So we decided we were going to go to a, a, a parenting counselor together to try to figure out a pathway to deal with this conflict we were having. And so we did that. And during that time, we figured out a pathway to deal with it. And I had to go to my daughter and say, look, honey, I love you with all my heart. And you're important in this family. And I want you to feel comfortable here. But Lynn is my wife. And long after you leave, she's still going to be my wife. You will always be my daughter, but you're going to go on your own pathway. And believe it or not, she was 18 when we did this. And we had been struggling with this forever. And it changed the whole dynamic because we identified it as an issue in our planning. We set a goal to change it, and we went and got the help we need. And so we've been married for 48 years. I'd like to tell you we do it all the time now. We do it every 3 years maybe. And I still have a plan here. Let's see. Let's see.
You're
I love
amazing,
the
Howard.
intentionality behind
I
it.
So,
know. I mean, God.
So, all right, here it is. My 5-year plan. Okay, everybody out
Look at
there,
For your
it's a
marriage.
document in here, and
Yeah.
it has all the things that we want to do, that I wanted to do. So I had economic and material well-being, how much I wanted to earn on our money after tax. Uh, um, a new car. This was material things for Palm Springs. What kind of car do I want?
Yeah.
Uh,
What kind of
uh,
car do you want, Howard?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious.
yeah,
Please.
yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
What kind of car did she want? Charity. Give away 5 to 10% of our income each year. Where we were going
Wow.
to give that to. So
Yeah.
all these things, and then we had goals underneath all of these, right?
Wow.
Friendships. We had a heading called friendships. Who did we want to make better friends out of?
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
What
Incredible
what did we want
intentionality.
for our marriage? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, anyway, so it's right
Howard, you need to
here,
write another
and I
book.
look at it all the time. I don't have to review it all the time because I know a lot of it, but anyway,
Yeah.
here's where we are. and it works.
And for
Yeah.
those listening who are not watching, Howard literally just turned to his side at his desk and he pulled a manila envelope. And inside that envelope was everything he just mentioned there. So he's very
Yeah.
intentional. And Howard, I
I'm
think
gonna
you need to
give you
write
one
another
more
book,
one more thing.
another thing.
Oh yeah, please bring it on, Howard. You're so
Okay.
impressive.
All right.
Thank you.
Here's a picture of Howard in 50 words or less. Okay.
I love it.
So let me tell you what's on this page.
Please.
This is
Yeah.
my mission statement, which
Yeah.
I plagiarized from Starbucks when we did this because I felt so attached to it. I did it. I said, I want to live my life every day, nurturing and inspiring the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. And the reason why I say self first is what I've grown to understand. If I'm not okay with you, with myself, it's very difficult to help you. It goes to mindfulness. And then my core values: honesty, fairness, respect for self and others, responsibility, integrity, trust in self and others, caring, and love. And then how I do everything, my 6 P's. Everything I do in my life has to have a purpose greater than myself. And if I have a purpose greater than myself, then I damn well better be passionate about it. And if I'm passionate about it, I got to be persistent because there's lots of rocks that we hit in this river we call our lives. And we got to get through them, over, around them, or blow them up. And then sometimes it takes patience to get the things that you want in your
Lots
life.
of patience. Yeah.
And then performance counts. You
Yeah.
got to do what you say you're going to do. If I've set goals out here, then I got to do those goals or cross them out. If you're
Right.
not committed to them, get rid of them because you're
Right.
not going
Yeah.
to do them. And performance counts at home. If I promise to do something at home, I better damn well do it. If my job is to take out the garbage, then I better take out the garbage. And I hear when I don't, because I hear from across the room, Howard, I know what she's yelling about. The garbage is overflowing. Okay. But performance counts with your kids. Like I said, if you commit to be at a soccer game, don't make excuses why you can't be there. I mean, tell the truth if you can't and apologize, but don't do it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
And then the most important thing, and then performance at work counts. If you commit to your teammates to get something done, or you commit to your boss or your shareholders, get it done. Or tell them early why you can't and ask for help. Nothing wrong with asking for help. Nothing wrong with saying, I'm struggling. Not a damn thing wrong with that. I struggle with lots of things, even today. And then the most important P, everything you do in your life is about serving another human being. Period. I don't care whether you're a widget maker that makes a widget that goes into a printing press, that publishing company that buys to produce a magazine or a newspaper that gets delivered to somebody's home to inform or entertain them. That widget maker is serving people. And our job
Love
in
it.
life is to recognize what we do to serve people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's humanity in others. Right. And this, and and step up in service of others and their needs. Wow.
And here
This is so
again, for
impressive.
those who are listening and not watching, Howard has that list. What was it? The 6 P's, Howard?
Yeah, my
Or was
6 P's.
6
and my
P's.
mission.
P's.
He had that list
Well-
right there with him. So he's living what he's preaching,
Do
practicing
it
what he's
now.
preaching.
Write it down.
Yeah.
If you don't write it down, it's wishes, hopes, and dreams. If you don't write your goals down, it's just wishes, hopes, and dreams.
Yeah.
Right? Write it down and make it real. You can cross it out anytime you want. Again, it's not written in stone. Do the
Yeah.
work. Do
Yes,
the work
exactly.
to figure out who you are, where you want to go. Live your life with intention.
Totally. Hope is not a plan. You know,
Yeah.
a fucking plan's a plan. No,
That's
for
right.
real. You know,
No,
that's a
trust me,
military
I
saying.
know I know that all too well.
Yeah.
So what do we
Wow.
got there? So we got the 9 rules to the compassionate emptiness. So those
Yeah.
were: do it in person, listen to the meaning below the surface, let silence fill your heart, ask and you will hear, make it safe, be responsive, provide feedback, commit the time to give alignment, and then get to flow, communicate about the right things. And then on top of that, we've got the 6 P's. All of that seems as though it's all tied to mindfulness, Howard. It's the intentionality behind things. So I love that you've been so intentional with Starbucks and the people within Starbucks. I love that you've been so intentional with your marriage. I mean, Wow, I've got some work to do.
I know.
But fantastic stuff, fantastic. So,
Yeah.
hey, Will, I'm happy
I'm
with where we
there.
are
I
at.
am
What
like
about
I
yourself,
feel
man?
like
It's
I've had
so much to process.
I know feel like I've
So
had a wonderfully satisfying frappuccino in my body after listening to Howard for so long. To be honest
I'd
with
like
you.
to give everybody watching a couple of things.
Yeah, a couple
Sure.
things. Close it out,
Okay.
Howard,
The
please.
first one is my cell phone number.
No way.
And my cell
Awesome.
phone number is this: 206 972 7776. 206 972 7776. My email address is my initials, hb@howardbehar.com. Now, I'm also going to give everybody listening a personal guarantee. If they do this work, if they take the time to identify their core values, to figure out what their mission is, and whatever their 6 P's are, it doesn't have to be P's, it can be N's or A's or whatever you want it to be, and live your life with intention, you will have a fulfilling life. You may not be rich, you may not accomplish everything you set out to do, but I promise you'll have a fulfilling life.
You're rich in
Yeah.
a more important way,
Yeah,
having
exactly.
that rich life. So
Wow.
amazing, Howard, and that's very bold of you, and
Very
we very much
generous.
appreciate you sharing that information and your personal cell phone or your personal phone and your email. I'll probably be texting you sometime soon
Yeah. And
to
this for
let you know how
inspiration,
things are going.
Howard, if someone feels a little stuck or, why would they be
Yeah,
contacting you? Yeah.
they can contact me. I'm a little slow to respond. I'm getting older now, but I
Yeah,
get
it's
back to
okay.
everybody. So
Wow.
Well,
I'm not a
amazing,
psychiatrist,
amazing.
but I'm a good ear.
Yeah, and a good ear and a beautiful heart, which we can hear talking about, the way that you conduct business as well as like the way that you are in your relationships, to your wife and to your family and everyone that you come in contact with, which is so important. It's like I think that's one thing that people really forget is or are scared to kind of access is the power within the heart, and this is what connects us as human beings, and it kind of the heart is so much different than the head and the ego, and we're working from that heart space. We really are. We're already wired with so much absolute fucking brilliance from the heart, right? And like, what does it take to get down into the heart? And all these 9 things that we just explained today, really lead to, accessing the heart, living in the heart, leading through the heart. And you can just really make a huge difference, whether it's in your family and Starbucks is one of the largest companies in the world. And it's all heart driven instead of head and ego driven.
Yeah,
So
and
fucking
something
brilliant.
else, we're all flawed,
Oh,
Of course,
and
yes,
sure.
I
exactly.
am exceptionally flawed. And everything I talked
Me
to you
too.
about today, everything I've said today at one time or
Yeah.
another, I've broken. You
Yeah,
know,
well,
I
that's
have.
part of the
It's a
flaw.
fact
Yeah.
of life, and I've tried to
Yeah, of
always
course.
get back on the track again, but I've broken
Yeah.
everything at one time or
Yeah.
another.
Well, but what's interesting, Howard, because you're heart driven, heart centric, heart oriented, and everybody knows when they work from that place, when you go off and you do things incorrectly because you have this internal compass. You have this is part of your one hat philosophy as well. When you deviate from the one hat, it's like, wait, something's off here. This doesn't make a lot of sense. How do I get back to my one hat? How do I get back to I guess the hat, the heart within my hat, if you will? That's awesome, Howard. Uh,
Ugh.
I don't have anything else here, John.
Yeah, me neither. I'm gonna go back and process this and write it all down in my journal, and then I'm gonna take my bride out and get her a separate hotel room and me one, and then we're gonna come back and
Yeah.
compare notes.
And get her favorite bottle of wine and buy 2 really nice Rydell glasses.
Oh, Rydell
Even
glasses. Okay.
Yeah,
even
yeah,
better,
spend $50 a piece on the glasses.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, maybe
Oh,
some
wonderful
chocolate,
advice,
right?
Howard. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today with us, Howard. This
This
has
is
been fantastic.
exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exceptional is the perfect word for it. So,
Yeah.
Will, I'll turn it over to you to wrap it
No,
up,
I
my
mean,
friend.
just big thanks over here, Howard. I really love the book. Here it is again. Everyone can see it. It's called "It's Not About the Coffee," right? And it says as subtitled "Leadership Principles from a Life at Starbucks." And I'm sure everyone listening out there has had Starbucks coffee before, and there's a reason that it's in 15,000 stores in 5 different continents, and it's really because of this man, Howard, that we're speaking, and Howard Schultz, the H2O, right, part of Starbucks. But Howard, I really appreciate your time. I mean, thanks for, even offering your number and your email for other leaders out there and men and people that would just like to, bring more of your wisdom into your life. So it couldn't be happier, Howard. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Will and John. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, thanks for tuning in. I'm
Yeah.
sure you're going to take a ton from Howard and apply it in
Yeah.
your lives and be a better version of yourself because of it. And that's all we have. Until next time, take care, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Peace. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.